There's a Bible phrase that we could quote here that would be appropriate. It says, "If you will be faithful over a few things, the small things, you will someday be ruler over many things and major things." That's it. That's the philosophy that counts. Surely life is reluctant to hand a fortune to someone who constantly messes up his paycheck. It's not the amount that counts. It's the plan and the faithful discipline of that plan that counts. The disciplines are those ingenious keys that unlock the door to the kind of person we really want to become. And becoming attracts all those treasures and values that most anyone would call the good life. Life in abundance, life in productivity, life in enterprise, life in influence, life in style. Now, to wind up this rather lengthy subject, let me close with this. Mr. Schultz's best instructions to me in those early years were to develop a new attitude. A new attitude about myself, and a new attitude about all the principles that it takes to make life unique. Develop a new attitude about taxes, about paying your bills, about the marketplace, opportunity, your chances, wealth, activity, prosperity, service, productivity. Let me give you a good example of my old attitude. I used to say, "I hate to pay my taxes." Schultz said, "Well, you can live that way if you want to." That's one attitude. I was a bit perplexed. I thought it was the only attitude. How strange. I used to say, "I hate to pay my bills." And he said, "Well, you can live that way if you want to." I thought it was the only way. I used to say, "I hate to part with my money." He said, "That's one choice for lifestyle and attitude." I thought, could it be that there is another way to feel about it? He said, "What if you said, 'I love to pay my taxes,' knowing it's the care and feeding of the goose that lays the golden egg? What if you said, 'I love to pay my bills, reduce my liabilities, and increase my asset'? What if you said, 'I love to part with my money, put it into circulation, help build this dynamic society'? Wouldn't that be a better way to live if you loved to instead of hated to? What an incredible way to look at it. I bought the idea and started the practice. I will admit that it took me a while to actually say truthfully, "I love to." But when I did, I found a completely unique new way to live. To love to instead of hate to. Shof even taught me to pay my bills with enthusiasm. He said, the next time you pay $100 on an account, put a note inside with your check that says, "With great excitement I send you this $100. He said, you won't believe what happens on the other end. They don't get many notes like that. But best of all, you won't believe what happens on your end. The new feeling of being in control and having a philosophy of life that brings joy instead of frustration. This whole new attitude will create for you a whole new world. Remember, it's something anyone can do." Mr. Shof got me to open my first savings account. He said, "Do you have a savings account?" I said, "I don't have enough money." And he reminded me, it's not the amount that counts, it's the plan. The important thing is to begin. Wealth is a plan, not an amount. He asked me if I had $10. I said, "Well, yes." He said, "Then open up your savings account and do it with your new attitude and enthusiasm."
Maybe that's why Henry David Thoreau asked in a moment of anguish, what if you live your whole life only to discover that it was wrong? That was wrong. God had so much more in mind for you. Maybe that's why he said, "Oh God, to reach the point of death, only to realize that you've never lived, only to realize that you've never scratched the surface of your potential." Everybody, let us say together, live full, die empty. The people in this room have decided to live full. The people in this room have decided to die empty. The people in this room have decided to live life on their terms and not to be a volunteer victim. When you say yes to this industry, you're saying yes for a bigger life. You're saying yes, I'm tired of playing small. You're saying yes, I'm ready to be empowered to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. You're saying yes to providing for yourself and your family. There's something that's in you that says, I'm not mentally fit to work for somebody for the rest of my life. You're saying yes to your life, yes to your dreams, yes to your unfolding future. Give yourselves a round of applause. Give yourself a round of applause. I didn't do this for years. I would go in the balcony of auditoriums and watch Jim Rohn and Dr. Dennis Waitley and Zig Ziglar, and my heart would beat so fast because I love helping people. How many of you love helping people? Raise your hand. I love helping people. And my heart said, I can do that. But then when I would leave there, and as I was walking to the car, my mental conditioning began to speak. And it would say, Les Brown, you can't do that. You don't have a college education. Les Brown, you can't do that. What makes you think that you have something to say that somebody would listen to you? Les Brown, you can't do that. What makes you think that you can speak for AT&T, Procter & Gamble, McDonald's Corporation, IBM? You've never worked for a major corporation. Les Brown, you can't do that. You were adopted. You don't even know who your parents are. How many of you ever thought about something you wanted to do? You felt it in your heart, and then your mind talked you out of it. Raise your hands. I convinced myself that I couldn't do it. I learned something from that experience. Whenever there's an argument between your heart and your mind, follow your heart. The things that the heart can understand and heal, the mind cannot relate to. Maybe that's why my favorite book says, lean not unto thine own understanding, and all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. There are things that you feel, that you know in your heart of hearts, that's not logical, it's not practical, it's not realistic, but there's something in you that says, I can do this, I can do this. After facing defeats and disappointments and failures again and again and again, there's still something in you that says, I can do this. Operating out of a thinking when life knocks you down, try and land on your back, because when you can look up, you can get up. I can do this. When you present and people say, oh yes, I'd like to be a part of that. Yes, they have the personality and they need it, and they don't show up. You end up being a babysitter. You have to be a counselor and a psychologist and minister. They challenge, pray to Jesus and Yahweh and Melchizedek and Buddha. They'll get on your last nerve, have you chanting, Nomi Yoho Renge Kyo. It's interesting when you talk to people about securing their future, and you can't help them to become actively engaged in their own life.
And at the time he gets ready to come back home, how do I face the father I failed? How do I explain what happened to the thing, the living he worked his whole life for? He doesn't have any more life to work, April. He's old. I wasted his life with hookers and strippers, and I got nothing to show for it. Oscar, I got nothing, and he's still alive, and I gotta go home to this old man broke. It's one thing to blow your own money, it's another thing to blow mine. Tip lightly when you come to my house and you blew my money. That's my money. That was my life. That was my lifesaver. And you wasted it on what? And worse still, he has to go home smelling like a pig, smelling like something his daddy would not touch, smelling like something his daddy raised him not to eat. What do you do when your shame affects the people you love, affects the way they look at you, affects the way they handle you at the Thanksgiving dinner? And yes, they invited you, but you know the way they look at you, and you know what they think about you, and you have shame. And the power of the prodigal son story is that while the boy is rehearsing, he's so afraid of his daddy that he's rehearsing what he's gonna say to his father. That's a level of shame when you're trying to figure out what I will say. I am no more worthy. Listen to that. I am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me a hired servant. He's trying to get his message ready because he is full of shame. And what blows the story wide open is, wow, he is yet a great ways off. The father sees him coming and tears off the porch like he's a young man and runs out to meet him. You know why he ran out to meet him? Because he still wanted him. In spite of the fact that he smelled like swine, in spite of the fact that he had spent his substance in riotous living, in spite of the fact that he had given his father's living to whores. He said, you're a shameful disciple, but I still want you. You messed up, but I still want you. And I want you bad enough to put a clean robe on a dirty boy, without a shower, without a bath. Bring him the robe and the ring, and let's celebrate and all. No shower, no bath, no cleansings, no ceremonies, no rituals, no communions, no church service, no prayer meeting, because he was still his son. What is Jesus trying to tell us about shame and God? That God still wants you, that he has a plan for your life that he already knows.
If John isn't making sales, we say, okay, let's get on him about making sales. But perhaps we should ask, why isn't he making sales? Someone says, he isn't making enough calls. We say, okay, let's get on him about making calls. Well, maybe we should ask another question first. Why isn't he making calls? Well, it's because he isn't getting up early and getting out into the marketplace. We say, okay, let's get on him about getting up early and getting out into the marketplace. Well, perhaps we should ask just one more question. Why isn't he getting up early and getting out into the marketplace? Now we have probably gotten to the heart of the problem. Perhaps it's something personal, problems at home, not his sales skill. The real problems are usually about 3 or 4 questions deep. So if you get good at asking questions, you can save yourself a lot of time by getting right at the heart of the matter when dealing with other people. Otherwise, you tend to waste valuable time just finding out what the problem really is. Now here is the last part of time management. Learn to think on paper. From all of my experience working on many projects and in many countries, one of the major time savers is thinking on paper. It is so important to take things out of your head and put them on paper, then work from the paper. Building your business is a lot like building a house. You take the ideas out of your head, put them on paper, and then build from the plan. We have a saying on this idea: operate from document, not from thought. It's just about over when a person wakes up in the morning and says, let's see, what shall I do today? Too late, right? The best thing you can do now is to take today off and at least plan tomorrow. Let me give you 4 major ways to think on paper. The first is a journal. I spend a lot of time talking about journals in my lectures and programs, primarily because it is such an invaluable tool for the serious student of the better life. A journal is merely a gathering place for all the good information that comes your way, from sermons, from books, from lectures, from business conferences, magazines, thinking time, research, any source of information that you feel is worth keeping. Don't let the good ideas of life escape you. Remember, most good ideas usually only come by once. Get into the habit of capturing them with pen and paper by making daily use of your journal. Now maybe you won't write in it every day, but at least make sure it's with you every day. Here's the second way to think on paper: a projects book. This is simply a ring binder with tabs in it to help you keep track of all the current people and projects you are involved with and need to work on to make all the parts of your life work to the maximum. If you are working with people, give them each a tab in your projects book. Then under this tab, you keep a running account of all the current information you need to know about that person: performance, family, goals, strength, needs, perhaps even some graphs showing recent progress or comparisons to past performance. Essentially, you make a note of all the information you need to know so that when you sit down to have a meeting with this person, you have all the pertinent facts there before you in order to have a meaningful and productive conversation. Without this habit, it's so easy to take up time talking with someone and get so very little accomplished because most of the meeting ends up by being devoted to bringing you up to date on the facts you could have already had in your projects book.
Everybody, let us say together: lead and grow your wings on the way down. See, in order to control your destiny, you've got to be a risk taker. You got to be willing to risk people talking about it. You got to be willing to risk someone saying no. You got to be willing to fail again and again and again. You're different. You're an entrepreneur. You're strange. You're not like everybody else. We live in a world where we're told more about our limitations rather than our potential, and so most people just can't see themselves doing better. But you're different. You see some things they can't see. And I encourage you, every one of you in this room right now, you're here for a reason. How many of you know people who should be here? Raise your hands, please. Yes. But you know what? They're in their rightful place. Their rightful place is where their thoughts have brought them. Their true place is where their thoughts can take them. Everybody is in their rightful place. Here's something else. Seek out positive information. I want you to write this down. My Facebook page is brown.less. Every day we post a positive message there. Every day, brown.less. Because you're in this room, I want you to write this down. Because we're going to send you, we're going to do something called presentation power. You're going to get a chance to view some videos that will give you some directions. But more importantly, I'll tell you what I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you 7 power strategies of how to be a powerful storyteller. So email me at yes@lesbrown.com and say, send me the 7 principles. Mention that you were at this convention. We'll send that to you free. It will give you a guideline how to tell your story. When I started off this presentation, I started off telling my story. I was born in the poor section of Miami, Florida, in Liberty City. Born in an abandoned building with a twin brother. You remember I told you that? My mother worked on Miami Beach as a domestic worker, making up beds, cooking for families. Remember I told you that? See, your story is your power. How many of you have gone through some things? Raise your hands, please. How many of you have experienced some things in your life? Raise your hands. How many of you have periods in your life like me where you're temporarily insane? Raise your hand, please. Your story. The presentation power will tell you how to tell your story. I've given lectures at Harvard, Yale, spoken around the world, telling my story. You got a story too. Here's what the power of the story does, and why it's important in your presentation and building your organization, and why it's going to give you the upper hand and how to recruit people, and how many like to get A players? Raise your hands, please. Good. Here's what your story does. Write this down. Distract. See, how people live their lives is a result of the story they believe about themselves. When you're presenting one-on-one or a small group or in a large group, when you tell your story, you're creating an interruption. When you're telling your story about the business of being on a path of creating financial independence, you're interrupting their story, what psychologists call the self-explanatory style. So distract. Let us say together, distract. Here's the other one. Say dispute. When you are going through your presentation, and we're going to teach you how to do this, you're dismantling their limited belief system where they've been programmed to believe only in having a job, the journey of the broke, where they're miserable. They go to work, where they pay them just enough to keep them from quitting, and they work just hard enough to keep from getting fired. That's what you call mixed emotions. Seeing somebody you hate drive off a cliff in your car. You're glad they're gone, but not in my car.
And it begins when you understand. It begins, Marcus, when you understand. It begins when you understand. He still wants you. He still wants you. Your voice in the choir, your message, your service. He still wants you. He still wants you. You're still his daughter. You're still his baby girl. Mistakes and all. He still wants you. He's still got a plan for your life. I'm not excusing your shame. I'm not justifying your mistake. I'm telling you that his grace is bigger than your disgrace and that he still wants you. I'm telling you that God is bigger than your deepest secret, your darkest night, your daughter out of wedlock, your disgrace, your drug addiction, your problem, your pain, your self-medication, your trauma, your family crisis. The scandal in your family is not bigger than the grace of our God. I came to tell you he still wants you. Came to get to you before you end up in the potter's field, self-destructing, self-medicating, self-destroying every opportunity over something you can't get rid of. God loves you, man. That God actually loves you. He still wants you. And you thought you just zoomed in to be zooming in. God wanted you to hear this word. This particular message has got your name on it. I can't help that she don't want you. He still wants you. I can't help that they're talking about you. He still wants you. I can't help how they stare at you. God said, I still want you.
Do you believe that every person has the ability to choose the right path, the spiritually enlightened path?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not easy. It can be tremendously difficult. It's easier to quit. It's easier to succumb. It's easier to give in. But to go forward, that's tremendously difficult. You have to be bold to do that, to say, no, this is not where I'm going to be.
Think about it in your own life. Haven't you had some area of your life where you raised your standard and your life has never been the same? Maybe at one time in your life you smoked cigarettes, or you did something and you did it for years and you kept trying to change it, kept telling yourself I should. And then one day something happened. Something just clicked you over. Something took you over that kind of tipping point. And inside yourself, you said, no more. And it was a very, very different experience, wasn't it? Something inside of you shifted.
Most people avoid the struggle. Most people go through life avoiding pain. And when you go through life like that, something in you dies. Something in you that you never activate is lying dormant in there, that you never get a chance to call on because you have not challenged yourself. Somebody said, the land of familiarity belongs to the dead.
We're going to play to win now. We're not playing to play. We're not playing to see how we do. We're not playing for fun. Once you start getting some winning, you start changing.
You must have faith. You've got to believe in yourself.
You talk different. You walk different. All of a sudden, this isn't the same damn human being.
You've got to believe in your abilities. You've got to believe in your service, your company, your ideas, unquestionably. You've got to have faith, and that faith gives you patience.
You can change you. You'd be surprised what a little winning would do. You'd be surprised how good you'd be if you just decide to win.
At the end of those kind of days, when you feel good about yourself, self-confidence starts to rise. You know that if you can have this kind of a good day, you can have another one the next day, and those days become the weeks become the months, and the month becomes a powerful year. Self-confidence comes from the lack of neglect. If you will not neglect to do the small daily disciplines, that's where self-confidence comes from.
Everyone takes the limits of their own vision for the limits of the world. Arthur Schopenhauer. There is all around you right now the reflections of your world belief. They're so ever present that you don't even see them. All the assumption that you've made about the world, the things that are possible, what you're capable of, who you are, the very definition of what it means to be alive, all of it is completely invisible.
So whenever you feel like your professor or teacher has lost their mind because they're overwhelming you with a workload that seemingly will take up all of your time, I need you to pause and recall the reason why you made the choice to invest your time. And never lose sight of the fact that you were destined to shine. Never lose sight of the fact that you were made for this grind.
You have to see past limitations and see only potential. You can't be looking at what the chances are that you're going to get through something. You have to know in your heart of hearts, somehow, some way, you have prepared yourself well enough. You will get through this moment. You will find something on the other side.
So accept the responsibility. See yourself as primarily responsible for your outcomes and your experiences.
And make no mistake, those limits are self-placed. And for the people that are willing to push that, for people that are willing to go beyond that, for people who understand there are things in this world that they're prepared to die for, and it is the thing that they put at the center of their life. It is the thing that they are living for. But they're not going to stop, and they understand that where the human mind thinks it will break is far short of where it will actually break.
Never lose sight of the fact that no hole is too deep for you to climb up out of. And above all else, your why will never ever allow you to withdraw.
And as long as you've done the work, as long as you've understood that every moment leading up to this has been about practice, it's been about putting in the work, it's been about having the discipline to do the things that other people are not willing to do, so when the game time comes, you're ready.
So let me tell you something. Everybody has a dream, but there is a behavior that must follow your belief system. Remember this, behavior follows belief.
I spoke at an education summit for Microsoft. I also spoke at an education summit for Apple. At the education summit for Microsoft, I would say that 70% of the executives spent about 70% of their presentations talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple Education Summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One is playing this way, and one is playing that way. One is playing finite, and the other one is playing infinite. Guess which one gets frustrated? So at the end of my talk at Microsoft, they gave me a gift. They gave me the new Zune when it was a thing. And let me tell you, this thing was spectacular. It was the most elegant piece of technology I'd ever used. The user interface was incredible. The design was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. It was easy to use, and it was bright and gorgeous and fantastic. It didn't work on iTunes, which is a different problem, so I couldn't use it, but it was amazing. And elegant. My God, it was elegant. So I'm sitting in the back of a taxi with a very senior Apple executive, sort of employee number 12 kind of guy. And, you know, I like to stir pots. So I turned to him, I said, you know, Microsoft gave me their new Zune. And it is so much better than your iPod Touch. And he turned to me and he said, I have no doubt. Conversation over. Because the infinite player understands sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're behind. Sometimes your product is better and sometimes it's worse. The goal isn't to be the best every day. The goal isn't to outdo your competition every day. That's a finite construction. If I had said to Microsoft, I've got the new iPod Touch and it's so much better than your Zune, they would have said, can we see it? What does it do? React, 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 react. Finite players play to beat the people around them. Infinite players play to be better than themselves. To wake up every single day and say, how can we make our company a better version of itself today than it was yesterday? How can we create a product this week that's better than the product we created last week? We also have to play the infinite game. It's not about being ranked number one. It's not about having more followers on Twitter than your friends. It's not about outdoing anyone. It's about how to outdo yourself. It's not about selling more books or getting more TED views than somebody else. It's about how to make sure that the work that you're producing is better than the work you produced before. You are your competition. And that is what ensures you stay in the game the longest. And that is what ensures you find joy. Because the joy comes not from comparison, but from advancement.
Human beings, we can feel like we're special, and we can feel like no one's ever been through what I've been through, and the world is hard for me and easier for everyone else. Well, the reality is that's not true, and we're not special. And the things that people go through, other people have gone through, most likely much, much worse and much more significant. So that, to me, was it gave me at least some level of perspective to realize that other warriors had gone through this before. This was my turn, and this is how I'm going to try and handle it.
Okay, so how do we get to this point? How do we get to a point where we will move forward regardless of what's going on in life? Because this is something most people won't do. You know it too. Not only, it's not just you, it's most people. So if you can get you to do it, how much of an advantage does that give you over the rest of the people? A fucking huge one. So what I would like you to consider is, how can you improve this part of your life? Well, it's real simple, guys. And I learned this lesson from a guitar teacher I had 10 years ago. All right. And he said to me, hey, Andy, you don't have any fucking patience. And I'm like, well, no shit, Matthew. I have fucking zero patience. And he's like, you know how you get patience? I said, how? And he says, by doing things that require patience. And that's what I want you to remember. If you need to understand and you need to develop how to operate regardless of what's going on in external circumstances when things are inconvenient, how do you get better at that? Well, you get better at that by doing things that are inconvenient intentionally. Okay, looking for opportunities to move forward when the circumstances are not ideal. All right. looking for opportunities to make things harder on yourself, looking for opportunities to develop the mental aspect of discipline and fortitude that are going to move you forward. Guys, this is a major, major, major key to winning long-term in life. All right? I'm not talking about motherfuckers that win once. I'm not talking about, that's not my people. That's not you. Okay? I'm talking about making a life where you are a perpetual winner in any direction you decide to go. All right? And this is a skill you're going to have to develop. So, number one, realize, hey, do you have this or do you not? Take inventory of how many times you're talking yourself out of everything. Take inventory how many times you justify your lack of action based upon what's going on with your mood or your world or your relationship or your job. How many times are you talking yourself out of doing what you know you need to do? My guess is probably a lot more than you should be. All right? So guys, first realize that you have to build the skill. And secondly, start looking to actively build that. Now, a lot of people, you know, all the fucking weak ass motherfuckers in the world will fucking comment, why would I work to make things harder on myself? This is fucking stupid. Who the fuck is this guy? Well, this is a motherfucker that built a whole lot of shit for fucking nothing, telling you how to fucking win. Okay? That's what it is. And I'm telling you that if you want to develop this superhuman skill of kicking ass every single time, no matter what the fuck is going on in your life, no matter what's going on in your world, no matter what's going on with the weather, no matter what's going on in our crazy ass society, if you want to learn how to kick ass, regardless of all those things, you will actively seek out opportunities to strengthen this muscle that is doing shit when it's not convenient. Okay? That's called discipline. Now, discipline, guys, is the key to everything. This is why I talk about it so much. If you could be in control of your decisions and your actions 100% of the time, what could you not accomplish? And how could you be held back? And how could you not get where you want to go? Because if we're being honest with ourselves, the reason you're not where you want to be can only be one of two things. It could be one, you're working the wrong plan. And in that case, there's lots of people out there, including me, that will help you figure out how to get on the right plan. Secondly, if you are on the right plan, it's that you're not doing it long enough. You haven't been doing it long enough, okay? And the reason that you probably haven't been doing it long enough is because you fucking talk yourself out of it every time the shit ain't convenient. Success and winning is not convenient. Success and winning is not comfortable. Success and winning in fucking life is going to be a daily fucking task for you.
I'm kind of antisocial, right? Like, if you don't know me, we're not going to have a conversation. You know, like, we're not having it's not, I'm not walking up and talking to you. If I don't know you, I'm not walking up and saying hi to you. It's not happening. It's not my personality. If you say hi to me, I'll say hi. I'm not disrespectful. I'm not rude, but I'm not looking to have a bunch of conversations with people. And so that's known to me. That's not okay for the business side of my life, which is, hey, I got to talk to people, got to build relationships, had to know my commanding officer, had to know the commodore, had to know the conventional battalion commander, had to know the brigade commander, had to build relationships. Could I just talk about the war with the brigade commander? Well, I could, but what's more powerful, that I talk about war and I talk about where I'm from or where he's from or what, other things? Yes, because I want to build a relationship. Why? Because I'm trying to build trust. What? Why? Because I want him to allow me to go out there and do things in his battle space. So that's what they're asking you. They're asking you to step out of your comfort zone. Does it need to become your primary focus? No. Should you try and step out of the comfort zone? If you want to grow, if you want to have more opportunity, I would give it a try. If not, like I said, if you hate it and you feel like you're not being true to your true self, that's okay. Maybe your true self is meant to be the one that's back not getting promoted. They need somebody to do that. Yeah. If it's not you, it might be somebody else.
Yeah.
It's another one of those tough questions where people, hit me with like, should I be loyal to myself? Because the obvious answer that everyone wants to hear is like, yeah, dude, the most important thing is you got to be loyal to yourself. That's the most important thing. Yeah. Okay, if that's what your priority is, then that's the most important thing. But guess what? Who can take care of the other kitchen dogs that respect you so much? Who can take a better care of them than you can? Because if you get promoted If you don't get promoted and Johnny Glamour Boy gets promoted because he likes to go out and schmooze the clients, and now he gets promoted, and now who's going to take care of the kitchen dogs on his time, right? Not him. He doesn't care. He got promoted not for taking care of his guys. He got promoted because he schmoozed the clients.
And so my thought process was, man, if I'm gonna give up on wind sprints, there's no way I could lead a family. I'm like, man, if I can't lead a huddle, like there's no way I could lead my son or my daughter one day. I'm like, man, if I can't show up on time, like there's no way I could lead a wife and 2 children. Like if I can't do what I say I'm gonna do, like there's no way I could be a leader, a priest, and a protector and a provider. It's no way. And so what happens is you have people that look good, they look like Tarzan, but on the inside they're Jane. You got people that know sports through and through, and to the public they're public success, but behind closed doors they're private failure. They can't give the same energy and the same passion to every aspect of their lives. Like to the thing they're passionate about, they can do it like no other. But in every aspect of their lives, they can't take that energy, that passion, that level of dedication and commitment to everything that they do and understand that it's a representation of who they are. Like at the end of the day, the core of who they are, it's almost like when you look at Adidas, you know impossible is nothing. When you look at Nike, you think just do it. And so I always ask people, when I look at you, what do I think? Excuses. Like when I look at you, do I think victory? Do I look at you, do I think, man, that's a champion right there. That's a guy that I know I can rely on. And when things go south, he's still going to show up and give me everything he got. I told a guy 2 weeks ago, I said, brother, everybody know what to do when everything go right. I said, but the only question you haven't answered for me yet is, what are you going to do when you don't get what you thought you were going to get? What are you going to do when things go wrong? What are you going to do when you work for it and you put yourself in position to get the position, then they come to you and tell you don't have it and you feel played? Will you give up on the mission that you once had to impact lives? Like the reason I thank you is because I know we need you. The reason I thank teachers all the time is I know we need them. My wife wanted to be a teacher from the time I met her and we was in the 2nd grade. And everybody at the park like, man, I want to go to the NBA. I want to go to the NFL, Major League Baseball. She's like, I want to be a teacher. I'm like, teacher? She's like, yeah, I want to impact people's lives the way my 2nd grade math teacher impacted my life when I lost both of my parents and they got murdered on the same streets that we walked down to school. I'm like, man, it's deeper than that. I knew it was deeper than that when I met her in 8th grade math class, and our math teacher made us recite a proverb before school every morning. And one day we're walking in lunch and he tapped my shoulder and he said, man, you're going to marry that young lady one day. I said, you lost your mind. I need to get out of your class. I said, it was cool to teach me math. Now you're talking about my life. Like, you tripping. And he ended up walking my wife down the aisle at our wedding. And when he handed her off, he walked by me and winked. He said, I told you. But I'm sitting there thinking, how did he see it? And I started to backtrack and I said, I know exactly how he saw it. I was on a corner in my neighborhood one night with my uncles, and 2 of them are doing 40 years and 20 years in prison, federal penitentiary. And I was just standing there. Like I wasn't doing no drugs, no drinking, none of that. I was a ball player. And a red Dodge Ram pickup truck pulled up. My uncle taps my leg and says, Ink, who is that? I said, man, that looks like my 8th grade math teacher and basketball coach. They said, what does he want? I said, what's up, Oak? How you doing, sir? He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm hanging out. He said, no, you didn't hear me. What are you doing out here? I said, I'm hanging out. He said, get in the truck. Take you home. Got in his truck, we rode down the block. I got out. He said to me, son, you're special. I said, all right, man, whatever. I said, son, I see something in you.
Sometimes, even if you're the most highly motivated person in the world, that grind starts to beat you down a little bit. And that's when you have to stop looking at the short-term thing, because that's not getting you to get it done. And you got to look, okay, what is the long-term goal that I'm looking at? What am I really trying to get done in the long term? And you say, oh, you know what? I'm actually waking up today early so I can be ahead of the curve, so I can sell more of these widgets or whatever, so that I can buy a house. And you know what? Today matters. Today matters. This decision that I'm making right now is that first step. It's me taking one stroke, swimming in the right direction, heading towards the shore. And if I don't take this, I'm not making any progress.